I want to take a couple of steps back from person first language and then go for person first language. The moment that I became a wheelchair user, my status in the world changed. And what I found very interesting to me as a wheelchair user who was new to that life, I had all sorts of people come to me and teach me about the wheelchair, how to use the wheelchair, how to go up a curb, how to go down a curb, when to go backwards, what kind of terrain, all of that. And when I got the power chair, they were even more careful about that. They taught me all about that. But no one spoke to me about the social change that comes with being a wheelchair user, that people look at you differently and respond to you differently and touch you differently and think about you differently, and they speak about you differently. I lost my humanity in all sorts of different ways, and I remember the very first time that it happened. I was going to a movie at a movie theater, and that particular movie theater, we always take an elevator up, and there's a very, very long escalator going up, and I'm a little scared of heights, so the elevator just fools me into thinking I'm standing in one spot. And I like that deception. It was broken down. It was broken down. So I sort of backed up, and the manager of the theater noticed me at the elevator and called to a staff and said, get the wheelchair through the other route. Get the wheelchair. Get the wheelchair. I then started hearing it in service provision. Load wheelchairs first. Bring wheelchairs through here. You know, I am not ashamed of being a wheelchair user, but I am not my chair. I am not my chair. And I want it clearly understood that this language dehumanizes, and I can prove it to you. I can prove it to you. Joe and I landed at an airport, and we have our routines. I'm in a wheelchair now, so Joe has to go get the rental car. I stay with the luggage outside the door where he will pull up and then come on in, and I'll roll myself out. He'll take the luggage out to the car and load the luggage. So I'm sitting next to the luggage. He has gone off to the rental car. I have a book, so I have my arm on the luggage rack, luggage cart, and I'm reading my book. And suddenly, I feel my cart move. And I look up, and there's an airport security guy pulling my luggage cart away. And I said, hey, that's my cart. And he looked at me and he said, luggage must be attended. And I was like, no, you don't understand. That's my luggage. You're taking my luggage away. That's my luggage. I need my luggage. And he gets really frustrated and said, I told you, luggage needs to be attended. And I'm like, well, I'm attending it. I'm right here. That's my luggage. You can't take my luggage away. I mean, I have to tell you, when you're my size, it's not easy to find clothes anywhere you go. I need my luggage, okay? I can't lecture naked. It would make you scared, okay? So I want my luggage, and I'm calling at him to get my luggage, and he's pulling it away. He keeps saying, luggage must be attended. Now, finally, there's enough noise that a pilot coming by, because we live in the era where you don't make noise in airports, comes over and speaks to the guard, because why would he speak to me? And he starts to talk to the guard, and I can be assertive. And I said, he's taking my luggage away. He's saying that I can't attend my own luggage. I can't do that. That's my luggage. And you can see the pilot going, whoa, 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 whoa. So he gets my luggage back. And he brings it to me. I want you to know I got my luggage back because of the pilot's voice. Not mine. Not mine. Okay? You know why I couldn't attend luggage? Because I was luggage. I had been reduced to my wheelchair. That my humanity did not matter. Language does that. Language takes away humanity from people who are fully human. It takes away. And it dehumanizes us, and it makes us less than. So we need to be careful about those words. And there are so many words used in reference to disability and the way that we even speak about disability. You know, I have pledged myself for the last 2 years that when I speak, I will not use any words where disability is a negative metaphor. People are blind to, people are deaf to, the system is crippled. All these words that say that disability makes things less, that somehow disability is a state that reduces people. Language matters, and more than that, language hurts. It really hurts. I find it interesting as a field that we even have to have this discussion because we know it. You know, I don't know a single organization that I provide service to or as I travel around and doing lecture that isn't part of the movement to end the use of the R word. Okay? We all understand that that's a word that's a hurtful word. I don't know if you're aware of this, but the BBC did a survey of disabled people around the world asking them what is the most derogatory term used in reference to disability across the globe, and the R word was the #1 word. The #1 word. And I see campaigns everywhere. We engaged in a campaign ourselves at Vita Community Living Services. And I'm only going to tell you this because this is going to lead me directly to person first language, okay? We had some staff and we had some people with disabilities come forward to us and say, you know, we were in the mall and some people were using the R word and the people we were providing service to were really upset, and self-advocates were saying, you know, they were sitting at a table and people called them the R word and it was really hurtful and they don't want to go out anymore and so forth. What do we do? Well, we thought about it for a little bit, and this is what we did. We created this card. And I'm going to just tell you what's on this card. On this side of the card, the front of the card, it says, words hit like a fist. And on this side of the card, now the intention of this, if you hear somebody use the word, hand them the card, drop it on the table and leave, okay? Because you want to have small enough print that it takes them a little while to read it and you're far away, okay, when they're done. No, that's purposeful, okay? So here's what it says on the back. Okay, I want you to know I'm going to use the R word here, but in print it's R and then a different symbol. But here's what it says. When you use words like retard or retarded, it hurts people. I heard you, when you use words like retard or retarded, it hurts people. I heard you and it hurt me. Many people with disabilities consider retard the most offensive word regarding disabilities, and I agree. Bigots use negative terms for minorities. Retard is the same. It's hate speech used against people with disabilities. Consider carefully your words in the future because words hit hard as a fist, so just stop it. And we would hand these out, and they had this incredibly powerful effect. I remember the very first time I used this card, we got it printed, okay? And we were all carrying it with us, and it was on a Saturday. We got them on Friday. On Saturday, I said, Joe, let's go to the mall and find some teenagers, okay? Because I'm armed, okay? I'm ready, you know? Seriously. So we went to the mall, and we went around, and we were around all sorts of teenagers, and none of them said the word. And I was so disappointed, do you know what I mean? Because I'm ready for you, you know? And the next day we go shopping at a grocery store, and I go up in the grocery store, and Joe has to go to the bathroom because we're of that age, and I'm looking at some magazines, and there's a teenage boy about 15 years old who's there with a friend of his, and his mom's off to the side. And the two of them are talking as they're looking at various magazines, and one boy said to the other boy, man, this band is just so retarded. It was like ding, 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 and over I roll, and I get the card out, and I hand the card to the kid, right? Now all the mother sees is this old guy in a wheelchair handing a card to her kid, okay? That doesn't look good, okay? So she comes over, okay, and she grabs the card out of her son's hand. Okay, now he'd finished reading it, but nonetheless, she grabs it out of his hand and she reads it and she comes at me And she said, how dare you? How dare you hand this to my child? How dare you? I parent my child. You don't parent a child. And then I got mad. And I said, well, you clearly don't do it well, okay? You know, he's using words that hurt people. And that's not okay. This is public space. I, as a disabled person, have a right to be safe in public space. And he makes that space not safe for me and not safe for other people with disabilities, so I'll hand out any damn card that I want, okay? So she and he just storm off. Joe comes back from the bathroom going, what happened? What happened? There's so much tension around here. So we do our shopping, and I take the elevator down to where the parking is. And as I get off the elevator, I notice that Mom, son, and friend are coming down the escalator, and we're gonna meet, okay? So I start rolling really fast, because I'm done, okay? I'm done, okay? I did my thing. So I'm rolling away, and the son breaks from his mother. And he runs after me. And I gotta tell you, my heart's going crazy. I thought, this kid's gonna beat the shit out of me. But nonetheless, he comes up to me and he gets in front of me and he said, sir, he said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't think, and I don't wanna hurt people. I'm not that kind of guy. I don't want you to think I'm that kind of guy. We got one. We got one. You know what I mean? We challenged that language, because language hurts. Then, so we're proud of ourselves as an organization. We're on the front, we're handing these things out and making social change. And so then we start a self-advocate group. The thing about self-advocate groups is that when people with disabilities get the opportunity to speak, they do, okay? So the very first thing they communicate to our executive director, she gets a letter after their first meeting. We thought they'd get together, have, you know, cookies and drink tea and have a lovely social time, but apparently they wanted to have a revolution. We had no idea. But the letter said, we don't want to be called clients anymore. They said a few more things, made a few more requests. And then at the bottom they said, again, we don't want to be called clients anymore because it's just how professionals call us retarded. They saw that language as language that hurt, that language that classified, and they didn't see in their minds a difference between the words that people used out there about them and the words that people used in here about them. I have read now many people within the disability movement have said there's 1,000 ways to call someone the R word. There's 1,000 ways. So we need to think about our language. We need to think of the language that we use and how we communicate respect to people. So as we thought about it, I think that the whole idea of the person first language is to force people into understanding that they serve people. You know, we can talk about how we will represent ourselves better as organizations and professionals because of the language we use. And that's great. That's great. But it's a little cosmetic. Person-first language will remind you that you're serving a person. It'll remind you that there's a person on the other end of your communication. It'll remind you about the strength of your grasp when you take someone into restraint. It'll remind you. Because person-first language forces us to state clearly that we serve people, not them. That we serve people, not those. We serve people, not the other. Okay? We serve people. We are people who serve people. And you know, it's interesting when you take a look at this from an abuse perspective. Dr. Dick Sobsey, who is the world's leading expert in violence and abuse against people with intellectual disabilities, has a son with a significant and profound intellectual disability. And I had the opportunity to interview him as part of a 2-hour radio documentary I did for CBC Radio up in Canada. And as he was talking to me about the stats of abuse and all that, I just didn't know how he could know what he knew and sleep, because he had a kid with a disability. And I said, Dr. Sobsey, how can you know all this stuff? How can you know all this stuff? You probably can statistically predict at what age and by whom your child will be victimized. And he said, oh, Dave, you know, all parents of kids with disabilities know that our children are vulnerable to abuse. I'm no, what do you do? What do you do? And he said, well, you know, I used to believe that we could change laws in states and provinces that would make organizations much more responsible for what happened to people in their care, and that's important, and we need to do it. And I used to believe that we could write policies that would make people much more safer in the organizations in which they receive service, and we need to do it, and that's important, but I don't think that's the answer. I said, well, what's the answer? He said, I think there's only one thing that I can do to make it less likely that my child will be victimized. Now, I don't know about you, I want to know what that is. And I said, so what is that? He said, I need to make sure that every single person who works with my son meets him first. What I need to do is for every single person who works with my son, I need to take him out of the thing category and make him a person to everyone who serves him. He said, Dave, I don't believe that people hurt people. I believe that people hurt things. So that's my job, is to make sure that the people who serve my son serve him as a person, not a thing. And I think he's right. I think he's absolutely right. So, saying in our own language that people with disabilities are people and people first is so important. And I've gotten the thumb, so what does that mean? 2 minutes. 2 minutes, okay. But I'm only here, and I've got this, okay? In the last session, he gave me the finger. I'm up to the thumb now. Okay, that is absolutely true. I won't tell you which finger he used. But let me just quickly say, because I really want to say this, that person-first language also replaces the language of ownership. The language of ownership, okay? My boys, my kids, my little loves. The way we speak of people with disabilities as if they somehow belong to us. The deed of ownership does not come with the people you serve. They own themselves. They are themselves. And I think that when we do that, I think the most amazing statement ever said to me by a very well-meaning staff, very proudly of her and her organization, she said to me, we normalize ours. We normalize ours? What the hell does that mean? You know what I mean? But nonetheless, there's this language that of ownership, because there hasn't been direction in language. There hasn't been organization stating clearly, this is the language we need to use. This is the language that will foster respect. Other language develops, and the language of ownership is one of those that I think we really need to think about and make sure that people understand they don't own nor control anybody that we serve. So let me just end by skipping this and saying this. When I was in Ireland, I worked with Down Syndrome Ireland, and they brought me over to Ireland, which was very cool, to do abuse prevention training for people with, and bullying training for people with disabilities all over Ireland. Okay, so I got to meet all these people with disabilities, primarily people with Down syndrome. And after one of the session was over, there was this really, really cool guy there. He was probably 22, 23 years old. And like he just presented himself with such power and such verve and stuff like that. And when it was over, he was walking away, and I said, I got to tell you, it was really fun teaching you. And he said, yeah, this was a fun class. And I said, well, you know, you're a really great kid. And he just stopped and he said, I'm not a kid. I'm not a kid. And he was angry. He was angry. He said, I'm a man. People need to treat me like I'm a man. I'm a man. And you know what? He's a man. And I spoke of him as if he was a boy. And I took away the power from him. Now, I didn't want to get into explaining, well, you know, I'm 50-something and you're like in this age, and I call everybody that's that age, that they're kids, because that's bullshit. That's bullshit. I forgot that disabled people have been on a long, hard road to adulthood. And they've been on a long, hard road to personhood. And maybe we could make that road just a little easier by speaking of them with respect. Thanks.